Good evening, everyone, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the fourth rendition of our virtual SOF Team Room series. My name is Fran Rachopi. I'm going to be the MC at tonight's event. I'm an alumni of 10th Special Forces Group. I'm currently the host of the Jedburgh podcast, where I speak with today's modern day Jedburgh. So anyone who's familiar with Operation Jedburgh would know that they were visionaries, drivers of change, those dedicated to winning at all costs. And I'm also the chief people officer of a company called Analytics Solutions. Tonight, if you're not familiar with the SOF Team Room series, we are almost a year into this. This started in November 2021 because there was a need, and the Global SOF Foundation said we have to have a need for honest conversations about the impact of 20 years of the global war on terror and what the impact of the withdrawal out of Afghanistan was doing. After the first conversation, we had to have more conversations. So we had a second one, and the second one was focused on relationships. Impactful speakers joined that one, like Tom and Jen Satterley and Siak Ramon Colon Lopez. The third event was focused around transition. We had wise words from Lieutenant General Jim Slife, Commander of Air Force Special Operations Command, and Command Chief Greg Smith, who himself just retired earlier that month. Chief Smith, if you're listening, we hope your transition is going smoothly. We hope everyone's transition is going smoothly. I know that I've been out for like 6 years and I still wake up every day and think, what would it be like if I was in? And I still feel like I'm transitioning. Tonight, we'll be talking about soft high performance in the gray zone. This is about community. This is about candid discussions. We want to talk about issues. We want to talk health. We want to talk high performance. We know that when you serve in special operations, you're a high performer, and there are unique demands on our mental, our physical, and our emotional well-being. It's not just one deployment, one job, one moment in time. It's an entire career, and those careers, they span decades, multiple decades for some people. The demands of high performance intensify most often with the amount of time that we spend in service and the opportunities. We see them as opportunities, some see them as challenges, but when you serve in special operations, you go after them and you have this bulk of experience that weighs on you in some way. These virtual team rooms are the place to discuss these tough topics. When you leave the team room, like we all remember when we were being in those team rooms, you know that your community walks the path with you, and they're going to stand by your side no matter what. The strength of the SOF community continues when we're in that team room, in service, and beyond, no matter where we go. We're going to be here for the next couple of hours. We're going to discuss some topics that my peers, me, our families, and others in the community have been discussing often. You probably may have had these discussions today. I know I had a couple of them already. After the opening keynote conversation, we'll switch gears to be a little less formal with 3 back-to-back health sprints in smaller groups. To get to those, there's a little logistics involved. So you're going to need to scroll down to join the Zoom meeting linked in the health sprint sections of the web page. Join that Zoom, it'll take you there, and then you'll be put in that small group. There you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand and participate in the conversations. Sprint 1 is our SOF connection discussion on leveraging culture to build community, led by the guys from the After SOF podcast, Daniel Bell and Patrick Brennan. Sprint 2 is our health and performance discussion on the SOF brain with Dr. Jason Mahalik, Director of Transforming Health and Resilience in Veterans, or THRIVE program at UNC Chapel Hill. Sprint 3 is our SOF mission and transition discussion with performance expert and former stuntman, Dr. Brian Haidt of Begin Again Performance Psychology. Once those are complete, about 8:30 Eastern, we're going to ask all the attendees to click back into the main event page to watch the closing discussion. You don't want to miss it because we're going to bring it all together. We're going to bring the speakers in. Dr. Chris Free is here. He's going to wrap it up for us. We're going to have a collaborative discussion about everything we talked about in all the breakout sessions and the main keynotes. We want to know what you think. We want you to raise your hand. We want you to get involved. We want it to be a community event. Before I introduce this first series of speakers, I need to thank our SOF Team Room support sponsor, Ghost Professionals Group. Ghost Professionals Group aims to empower students and clients with the skills and training necessary to deter, identify, and navigate risks by equipping those at the heart of the mission to obtain total completion. They generously stepped up in support of this event. You can learn more about them under the sponsors sections of the event webpage. Okay, let me introduce our keynote speakers and get this team room discussion going. First, we have Vice Admiral Tim Szymanski and his wife, Marcy. The Admiral recently retired as the Deputy Commander of U.S. Special Operations Command after a long career. He will be joined, and Marcy, who has been by his side his entire career, is a committed supporter of military and Gold Star families, a mentor to fellow spouses, and a confidant to so many. She took an active leadership role throughout their 37 years in the military, served on the board of the Navy SEAL Foundation, and most recently earned her master's in social work from Fordham, and is continuing to build the community even after their service. We also have Command Sergeant Major Hank Marsh and his spouse, Jessie, with us tonight. The Sergeant Major retired from the Army after 35 years of service, a majority of which was in Special Operations. His last assignment was as a senior enlisted leader at Special Operations Command Africa, an organization close to my heart, as we were talking about before we started. Jessie dedicated herself to raising their family and supporting the unit however she could, and in 2016, she was honored with the Colonel Maggie Ray Volunteer Award. Now she's completing a degree in anthropology and recently returned from an archaeological excavation in Tunisia. That's awesome. Tunisia's really nice. Well, depending on where you go. They're going to be joined by our SOF Team Room frequent flyer, Dr. Chris Free. If you know Dr. Chris Free, I've had the pleasure of working with him over the last couple of years, a true friend, an ally of all special operators. He's going to guide this conversation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to him.
Wow, Fran, thank you. That was a very gracious, excellent introduction for all of us. And I'm excited to be here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a number of really important issues with some really terrific people who know what they're talking about and who've been there. So just real quickly on my background, I'm a clinical psychologist, PhD. I've been working for about 30 years with veteran service members, SOF community, and contractors. And I think, I don't want to talk too much. I want to dive right into our questions because we never have enough time. So I'm just going to lead right off. And I think this is a question for Tim and for Hank. And by the way, folks, we agreed ahead of time, we're going to be informal here. So just regular names, not ranks, if possible. So first question, the great power competition and challenges of the gray zone have been topics that have been brewing for years, and they became urgent demands for special operations with the Afghanistan withdrawal and many of the other things that are happening in the world today. What challenges do operators and units face in the SOF missions and focus change to meet the challenges in the gray zone?
All right, Hank, I'll go first and I'll kick it over to you. Sound good? All right, got a thumbs up there. Hey, I do like the informality. The SOF team room, I love the concept. And, as a team room, it typically is informal. We really are in a team room, brutally honest with each other and I'll apologize up front. I'm trying to, now that I'm retired for a few months, I'm trying to get out of acronyms, but they still roll off the tongue once in a while. But after action reports, we're pretty brutal on each other inside the team room. And I asked all the members who know the team room well not to tune out, because I really want to thank Jessie and Marcy for participating as spouses and long advocates of the community. Because it is a little bit sacred. So the challenges, and believe me, the sprints are, I don't know how you got, it was so deliberate in how you set this up, but I think the sprints tonight are really, really important on the theme of the high performance in the gray zone. I talked a little bit about this, or I talked a lot about it as a deputy commander in my previous role, sort of and more motivationally about transformation and where we needed to go with near peer competition, right, and regular warfare. But those that have been at the TSOCs or the Theater Special Operations Commands, like Hank, for a long time, typically under-resourced, overtaxed, and asked to do a lot of things that aren't what looked like the last 20 years, or 21 or 22 years. Now we have a generation, multiple generations, if you will, of, if you think about this at the battalion level or the SEAL team level, every 05 commander and his command master chief or his sergeant major has come in after 9/11. Right. So we have a generation that really, this is, multiple generations that this is all they know. And unless they've been, like Hank, who's spent, a good piece of his career at TSOX and other places doing those other things, all they sort of know is this kinetic aspects of, we're defined by, unfortunately, counterterrorism and the global war on terror and what we've done in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so I want to put that in context about the challenges of, a China, Russia, this near peer peace. So, we've all experienced tremendous loss, tremendous heartbreak, tremendous success in the missions in Afghanistan and Iraq. And we can own the fight. We can win the fight. The enemy will still fight back very, brutally, but for the most part, we own the space. We own everything about that environment for the fight. That's not going to be the case if we start to escalate into crisis or higher level competition with China or Russia. The space will be contested, and it is contested. In fact, we may not be the dominant factor in that space, and so we're going to have to figure that out. And so I think, really, for SOF, Special Operations Forces, this aspect of taking it to the next level, but getting this multiple generation of folks that have only known this stuff to kind of stretch their mind, to stretch their comfort zone on what we typically do and how we typically do things, to do things a little bit differently. And Fran, to your opening piece on the Jedburghs, I see that as critical to how we progress on how we're going to compete against a China or a Russia, with that more analytical, that more adaptive, that more cunning aspects of what the Jedburghs and more like the OSS than kind of where we have been for the last 20 or 22 years. So I know the time's going fast. It goes really quickly. I'll take follow-ups, but I do want to kick it over to Hank really quickly and see what he's got to add.
Yeah, sir. Thanks for that. And thanks to Global SOF Foundation and SOF Team Room for hosting this event and more importantly, doing the day-to-day business that you've committed to. It is a great cause. As I look through the websites, I've kind of cruised them in the past, but in preparation for this event, I kind of dug into the websites and I was just amazed at really all the good that you're doing. So on behalf of someone that spent the great portion of their life in the community, thank you for all that good service. And I'll just kind of dovetail on what Tim is saying. I think as I look particularly at my efforts at the end of my career in SOC Africa, SOC Africa is a command that's woefully under-resourced. We're very careful to overinvest on the African continent, and probably for good reason. Things just aren't as stable as we need them to be, and have never been as stable as we need them to be. So it's a risky proposition, I get that. But with that in mind, you're always having to do big things with small investments. And as it applies to great power competition, you're competing against someone like China, who's really investing 4 to 5 times more than what we, the US, are investing. And so you're kind of always behind on that proposition. And I would just say that, therefore it's important that we're very discerning and wise as to where we're putting those investments. We can invest everywhere, but we have to be really have some real forethought in where and how we're investing. And I think that's going to make the difference. As far as on the operator level, agree with Tim. A lot of our people that are active in the force right now have probably done things that are more equivalent to direct action missions. And now you're asking them to do more of influence operations, if you will, on whatever level that may be. But we have to remember that really that's the foundational existence of who we are in SOF from the time of our inception. First it was low intensity conflict, and then it switched to operations other than war. Then it switched to operations short of war, and now it's gray zone operations. And so it's the same thing. We just keep changing the name of it so that we can give some staff colonel credit for coming up with a new idea. But to the point of really, I think the whole point of this and like events is so we can talk and we can spread a lot of that experience and knowledge across the force, both those that were in the force, that are in the force, and potentially those that will be in the force. That's how I'd answer that. Thanks.
Thank you. For the next question, I guess I'd like to address it to all four of our keynote guests tonight. So maybe we can even start with the wives. So what are some changes that you all, so I get this is a question for everybody, but I'm going to start with Jesse and then Marcy. Your service began prior to the 9/11 attacks and the global war on terror. So what are some of the changes that you've experienced personally, as well as professionally, when the 9/11 attacks changed our whole defense paradigm? Jesse, you want to take that one first, please?
Yeah, before 9/11, it was normal, I guess, soldier duties. And after 9/11, I guess you could say we were like prideful in a way, like America came together and you guys were the first in, and that was our spouses. But then I get emotional. So we started losing people. And that was new, the losing of, a friend's spouse or someone you knew in group. And I won't say we didn't know how to handle, because I would just brag on fifth group spouses. They know how to handle everything and they do it wonderfully. But that was new, was losing. And it wasn't, I would say constantly, but we kept losing people, and that was new for us.
I think, Chris, from an operator standpoint and somebody that came to the community in the early 90s, people think that we're deploying at a greater op tempo after 9/11, and I just don't think that's true. When I look at how I deployed through the 90s, I was probably at about the same deployment rate. But what did change is how we executed the deployments. And what I mean by that, before that, we were doing a lot of 2 or 3 month deployments. And then after 9/11, we started doing a lot of the 8 and 9 months deployments. And the other thing is all the deployments beforehand, maybe occasionally you'd lose someone to an accident or something like that. But yes, the rate of loss of your comrades to the left and right of you was really relatively small. And then when we went into after the events of 9/11 and all the operations after that, obviously we all know that the rate of losing our comrades went up dramatically. And I think that's what was probably a greater toll as we talked about this today. I think that was a greater toll on the families because we were all overseas and you grieve for a couple hours, you grieve for maybe a day or two, but then you got to get back to the mission. And so you can't sit there and spend a lot of time lingering on that because it'll cause greater loss of life. Whereas the families were in the full throe of dealing with those losses from beginning to end. And I think from a family standpoint, I guess that's when I talked in my retirement speech of how we served and sacrificed equally. That's what I mean. And when I say that, I almost feel like I'm selling her short because to me, that's always one thing that I've always appreciated and honored that those families are going through that.
Thank you. And I've talked with many children of operators over the years, and I know that they're affected as well. The number of funerals that they've been to of uncles in the in the very real, not biological sense, but the real sense. So I know there's a profound impact on spouses and children as well. Marcy, maybe can I turn to you for your thoughts?
My thoughts pretty much echo Jesse's. The gravity of what we were in just changed after September 11th. And right with the first casualty that NSW suffered, it was just life-changing for so many people in our community. And I'm going to try as hard as I can not to get emotional as well. But, seeing the families, and for me, it was even harder to see the kids when they lost their dad. The way that they, dealt with it was remarkable. They really were very, very stoic to a certain degree. And then there was also the just the strength that you could see when the family came together and when they were celebrating their dads at the funerals and things like that, how proud they were of them, but at the same time that they were hurting so badly. And it was really difficult for a while seeing that, but it's also been amazing to see how some of those kids have been able to thrive despite the incredible pain, challenge, hardship that they've gone through. And it's just been a different dynamic. It's brought everyone closer in a way that maybe we didn't want to be closer because there were so many deaths, but it just really made the community tight.
Thank you. Tim.
Hey, Chris, I'm going to try to take that two ways to kind of keep with the theme. And, it's a heavy topic. Thanks, Jesse and Marcy, for, providing those thoughts. But to their point, it became really real. I mean, we're all ready to do something, after that, the travesty of the World Trade Center and the bombing or the planes. And so we all wanted to do something, but those first losses, made it real. And it's been real for 20 some plus years. And it's not like they all came at the beginning and then there was, some in the middle. They have come, and unfortunately we've had some mass casualty situations in all of our communities, but particularly in NSW with Extortion 17. And if anyone's on, watching, that's Gold Star spouse, Gold Star family, our hearts and prayers are with you all. To Marcy's point, it's the club you never want to be initiated into, but once you're in it, it's the strongest fraternity that's out there. And so that same fraternity has pulled the communities. I've never seen the communities, and this is one of my worries with the Great Power Competition. And as we come out of these 22 years and the resources, is the SOF, multicolor community is really tight right now. During the Solik years, the special operations low intensity conflict, when there was nothing going on, everyone was competing for the one mission, the one thing to do, the one opportunity, and how you could demonstrate that your community or your unit or your team had something to provide, or they could one up on the others. And so as we think about that going forward, it becomes really important because, well, first of all, we said it was going to be a marathon and we needed to pace ourselves, but we did the marathon at a sprint for most of our careers, for all of us online, and trying to kind of pace the next generation, have some standard bearers. This aspect of to your sprints, the cognitive performance, because the human performance becomes so important to the team performance for execution, particularly again if in those areas where it's chaotic, it's uncertain, we don't own the space, we don't dominate it, and it's going to be a new challenge for our SOF operators and our teams out there. So this aspect of performance becomes important. And one thing that I'm been on lately talking about a lot is how do we unpack along the way? How do we unburden ourselves this aspect of resilience? We know we're tough. We got lots of tough folks in the teams and in all our units. But how do we unburden? We tell guys what they can do throughout their career with rules of engagement or ROE or law of armed conflict and all these things. But how do we give them the skills for what Jesse and Marcy were just talking about, and for all of us, the time to kind of deal with our grief and the trauma we've seen or experienced, to kind of move through to build a stronger team so that team is ready to perform at the next level, against in a higher state of play, against a near peer. So I can ramble on this for a while. I'll stop there, Chris, and back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right. We're just scratching the surface here. So I wish we had more like 3 hours for this conversation.
Hey, Chris, could I just add one quick comment to
what's coming back to you, Hank?
Talking about? I think in the paradigm where the larger force is not involved in the fight, we've had the luxury of having attention given to us with everybody in Iraq and Afghanistan. And now as we look at applying the force in areas where the larger components are not, how do you still keep focus on those areas that are important for SOF, even though the world's not looking there? I guess that's one thing.
Thank you. That's a really good point. Hank, is there anything else you would like to say at this point, just briefly about lessons things you wish you had known at the start of your career, 20, 21, 22 years ago?
I don't know if that's really fair to the whatever he was, I think 25-year-old Hank that first walked into a team room. I honestly, Chris, I would just say, if I had it to do all over again, I would do it all over again in a minute. This life has meant the world to me. It's been hugely fulfilling because the people we surround ourselves with. And when you go to work every day and work matters to the people that you surround yourself with, that just makes work enjoyable. The only thing I would add that, really through my last two jobs, NSOG SOJIDF, the NATO Special Operations Component Command Afghanistan, and then I went from there to Special Operations Command Africa, really working the US SOF have a distinct ability to bring cohesion and complementary efforts within the international SOF community. And that's our huge strength. Few other nations in their SOF components can bring that cohesion to the table. And as we go forward, that's definitely something we need to capitalize on. When I was with SOC Africa, the unfortunate events of October 4th happened, and we lost 4 guys in Niger. And what people don't know is really how French SOF came to really save the rest of the team and get the rest of the team out of there. And had we not had that well-established and developed relationship with French SOF, then we couldn't have got them to respond to do a show of force with their fighter jets, literally within 10 or 20 minutes of the event going down. And so I think that's something that the force has definitely got to focus on going forward, because we no longer have the resources to go it alone, either in SOF and I would argue as a nation. And so that's the one thing that I think I would impress upon the young 25-year-old Hank, to be better at forming relationships, not just with your host nation, but with other SOF components around you. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. So I'm a minute over time, 2 minutes over time, but I want to give you guys the panel a chance for any last words or any last thoughts that you want to share. And if there are none, I'll kick it over to Fran.
Hey, Chris, if I can, I don't want to take you guys over too quickly. Double tapping on exactly what Hank said, but one thing I think we all learned about is family, the importance of family, right? And they're a big part of the journey. Before 911, I was playing make believe in a world. Then I realized, after 911, with the losses, that family becomes important, and taking care of yourself, taking care of your family. But to Hank's piece, we're not, and for anyone else listening, we're not a one-trick pony. And the TSOCs, the Theater Special Operations Command, have been doing great work. You would think it's all Iraq and Afghanistan, but the things that we are doing, the stability in places like Somalia and other places in Africa, but even what Ukraine is doing, SOF, I wouldn't, if I was in, be a little bit more humble. But we could take some credit for how Ukraine's performing right now in that phase. And the last point is to Hank's great point on relationships. In near peer, to take this back to gray zone, is we're really going to be dependent on these other countries. And we went into Afghanistan, Iraq, we basically had to supply everything to our partners. But all those nations, particularly the European countries, SOF elements have grown up. And their organizations have really matured over the years, and we're going to be heavily dependent on that complementary effect in near peer competition. Rush through that, but back to you, Chris.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it back over to Fran.
All right, thank you. Sir, Sergeant Major, Marcy, Jesse, thank you for all your comments. I think if I summed it all up, what I would say is that community matters, but community and relationships are built on people. And what we all know, everybody here, is that soft truth #1 holds, that people are more important than hardware every single day. That's what bonds us. That's what builds great organizations. That's what builds great teams. And that's what continues to put our U.S. operators at the top of every hierarchy that they sit in and bring everybody together. So thank you so much. We are going to take a short break for everybody to transition over to the health sprints. So like I said earlier, go onto the web page, wherever the link is, where you can see it, to jump out of this conversation, jump into the health sprints, click on that. It will take you there, and we'll get into those in just a minute. I'm here to help you out.
You guys are the problem solvers. All right.
All right, I just need about 15 to 20 seconds to get it back to streaming. And then Fran, I'll give you the 5-second countdown.
Okay.
All right, you're good.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Appreciate everybody's comments. I want to once again thank our SOF Team Room sponsor, Ghost Professionals Group. Find out more information about them. It's available on our sponsors section of the event website. Check them out. We wouldn't be here without them. And so we're really thankful for everything Ghost Professionals Group has done for us to get the session up and going. All right, we got one more conversation to go. It's a recap session. It's going to bring together a lot of the topics that we talked about today. And then after we turn it over to Chris Free, then Miss Kayla Lehman from the Military Special Operations Family Collaborative is going to say a couple of closing remarks. But for now, Chris, it's all yours. And I let everybody go longer. And as I was joking before you came on, it's your problem to solve. I created it, but you're one of us, so I'm sure you'll figure it out. Don't be late.
Thanks, Fran. Appreciate you. So I think one of the key takeaways I have from just the format is we need more time for each of these sessions. So that'll be something we can figure out for the next one. But so with just maybe about 10 minutes left, throw this out there to everybody on the panel. Key takeaways, either things that you heard today or things that you want to emphasize or highlight or things you just want to introduce into the discussion. And by the way, feel free to address each other or ask each other questions. So maybe we'll just go with seniority, and Tim, I'll give you the first of the last words.
I saw Marcy shaking her head. I don't think she wants me to talk anymore. Hey, no, it's really good. I think three sort of things that, rang true for me throughout this was that, and really, Brian, I was like, I'm not sure where we're going to take the motivation piece of this, but this aspect of the beginning conversation with high performing in the gray zone and where the force, the active force needs to go, and how do leaders motivate based on what the challenge is in front of us. And I think it's a really, really good topic. Along with that is tied quickly into Jason's piece on brain health and how important, the aspects of unburdening, unpacking along the way, and to get the best cognitive performance out of our operators for all our force, but largely because the challenge is going to be harder. And not only so, how do we get the best performance out of them, but how do we protect them and take care of them along the way? And then the third, kind of set up front, not mentioned throughout the rest of the other discussions, is the continuation of this aspect. And I really thank the Global SOF Foundation for inviting both Marcy and Jesse into the conversation tonight on the family aspect, because it all all the communities together. I mean, it all builds on itself, and we didn't used to believe this, but they are a huge part of the team. Right, and they're a critical silent partner, oftentimes in this teaming concept. So those are kind of the key three takeaways for me. Marcy.
Sorry about that. I couldn't hear that. No, I think the biggest takeaway for me was actually I thought the presentations were great. And I don't know why. I didn't think that I was going to be that affected by them, but I definitely was. It was very interesting, all three presentations.
Hank, Jesse.
Yeah, I'll try to be concise, something that I'm not normally very good at. But yes, appreciate the whole event. Really appreciate how community and motivation really across the force. Again, our past force, our current force, and how we really prepare each other to meet the challenges of the future. And then how we take into account the brain injury side of it, to me, kind of really spoke of health. And if we look at that as a larger umbrella, that being probably the primary concern of the force right now, but broader health, how we manage health in the bigger picture, so that the force of today looks at the force of yesterday and can be trusting that they're going to be looked after and managed. Because again, as I as I think of the fight of today and of the future, it's going to be decentralized. And as we look at a decentralized fight, then there's less, the nation sees it less, kind of the war in the shadows type thing. And if we're going back to a war in the shadows, then we're not getting that praise and we're not getting that recognition. And so therefore you can start questioning, the value of what you're doing. And so it's imperative that we speak the value of what we're doing to each other. So when there's less voices in the room, we're still confident that what we're doing is right. And I guess that is my takeaway. And I'll let my wife probably say something way more prophetic than I just did.
Yeah, the first two speakers hit it on the head for me. Community and mentors, we need that. Yeah, we need to step up and help each other out. I really appreciated the mentorship that they were speaking about in community. And the brain injury, doctor, oh my goodness, you guys in this room, we need to be thanking for bringing that to the forefront of what our soldiers, our spouses have been affected with. Yeah, thank you for that. We'll be speaking more about that tonight. And Mark Height, I'm pretty sure he came to fifth group. I got to sit in a resiliency and high endurance job week-long. Week-long, what would you call it? Seminar with him and some other. And wow, I still have the notebook. I still have Get in the Car with a Cougar. They showed a Will Ferrell clip, which was what is this doing in resiliency? But it was about fear. Get in the car and do it. And I still say that every day. So if we could get him to come speak at anything, we would be lucky. So thank you, guys.
So we're about at time, and I've been told we can have just a few more extra minutes. So anybody else on the panel? Patrick, please.
Yeah, thank you. There's kind of two things. One's a question, so I'll kind of say that for the end. But we talk about mentorship and that, and as part of the last sprint there, talking about motivation and those things. How do you grade performance? It seems like we're always, as a society, we're always in this struggle of how do we grade? How do we find the data? We want more data. Everything's got to be more, right? We want to see, even my kids that are in school, we got to take this statewide testing to see where they're at and how they're progressing. And, it's very important, right? We have an obsession with data, but the other side of that, the folks that we're interviewing that have recently retired, Green Berets, they look back on their careers and they say, the most important thing I had was mentorship, right? It's not how I got graded on my reviews or how I got rewarded to go to schools and to do different things and different assignments. It was the mentors that took me aside and said, hey, you're doing this wrong. Here's the right way to do it. And whether that be finances or marriage counseling or within the team room, right? So that mentorship piece in the civilian world, we talk a lot about emotional intelligence, right? That's the new phrase that's promoted a lot. But, how do you have that conversation in the team room? Like, we need to talk about our feelings and have some sort of bonding there, right? But the emotional intelligence piece through mentorship is a much powerful motivator than any reward system, right? Because you don't want to let those other people down. And there's already that essentially in the team room, but to even further improve yourself, to be the best version of yourself is through mentorship, right? And so to segue and not take too much time, but the topic I want to ask Tim and Hank from a senior leader level, also Jason from, medical standpoint. We're in Texas and there's a lot of conversation about this topic, but you've got former Governor Rick Perry, you've got Representative Crenshaw, and some other veteran organizations, Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, and some others that are talking about psychedelic psychotherapies and the research that's going into that and how that applies. So I just wanted to get you guys' take on that. If you have any, if those conversations were happening in your spaces, or what research is out there right now.
I'll just jump in. I've been part of conversations. It's a complex landscape just because of the legalities of being able to actively treat individuals. There, to my understanding, my knowledge, a couple of studies ongoing, but those individuals are actually being moved outside of the country for that treatment and then studied here stateside. If you join us in a month, I'll try and include a couple slides on psychedelics and the advances there. It's not my particular area, but I'd be happy to touch on it at the deep dive. Just a couple quick closing thoughts for me. My 3 wins here are that I didn't bore Marcy, that the Marshes are going to be talking about me at bedtime, and that that I had this opportunity to be here with all of you, and very humbled to have been a part of this event here this evening. And thank you all for your service.
Any other last words? All right.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I
everybody.
just wanna say thank you again
Quick-
for,
oh, go ahead,
having
Bob.
me out. I really do. And to me, the transition discussion is so important. It's something that I think is kind of glossed over in a lot of situations. People don't really pay attention to how hard it is to move from one thing to another. But I really appreciate that discussion as well as the TBI discussion, because that is something that's a complete culture change in many areas. Athletics is one of them, military is another, stunts is another. Even within the performing arts, there's a guy named Jeff Russell that I've collaborated with at Ohio University that studies brain injuries with performing artists. So it's a topic that is absolutely relevant and important. So thank you all for doing that. And thank you for allowing me to talk about my little thing.
Tim, last word?
Just to echo Patrick's couple comments there. The mentorship, it's really, really key. It is one of the, it's one of the things I'm already, missing. I'm going to try to still reach out and do that in transition, but it's contact sport. And the last couple of years, the greatest compliments I got, or, feedback that I got. So mentorship's about feedback. If you're doing it right, and were people that I didn't even know I impacted their life coming up and say something. It wasn't even the direct mentorship. It was almost a tangential mentoringship. But the other point on, so when you think about the psychedelics, years ago, before TCCC, the Tactical Combat Casualty Course, we didn't do tourniquets, right? How does the single use tourniquet save so many lives and limbs over the last 20 years, or freeze? So, that it may come around. This community is really, really huge on anecdotes and not evidence. And so we need evidence-based aspects, but I'm all for, exploring the alternatives as long as they've got sort of a method to their madness. But thanks, everybody. It was great. I know I went long. Sorry.
We've all gone long. That's beautiful. Fran, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you begin the wrap up with Kaylee.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate everybody's time. Appreciate everybody's comments. Really great discussion here. And I appreciate the opportunity myself to be a part of this. This is something really special that we're building here. Everybody talked about community. We serve, we think we go into these roles to do something for ourselves sometimes, and we realize that we're doing it for everybody else. And I think that one of the things when we do transition, now we talked about a lot of transition, one of the things we don't think about is what we leave behind when we leave that community and we're looking in the rearview mirror. And I think every single one of us, it hits us differently when we leave the post for the last time and realize, oh no, everything I know is behind me and I don't know what's next. And then very quickly we realize that we got to rebuild that community. And so I appreciate this organization. I appreciate everything that they're doing for the SOF community. I encourage everyone to continue to join. And thank you all for allowing me to hear your thoughts and learn from you tonight. So I'll turn it over to Kaylee and she'll take it from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Fran. Thanks for leading us tonight. And thank you all for your patience in the run up to this, everything you did to be part of tonight, to be so critical to the conversations happening in the sprints, in our opening panel, CSM, Admiral, Marcy, Jesse, Brian, Jason, Patrick, Daniel. I can't thank you enough. We can't have these conversations without your run up. Chris, you're with us every team room, and we couldn't do it without you. You lead these conversations and keep the voice focused and at a level everybody can participate, families and service members. We were beyond thrilled to have our spouses participate tonight. We've been aiming for that since we kicked off last November, and we're so glad to have you with us tonight and participating. And thank you to our partners at Global SOF. We love partnering with you at this event. The Military Special Operations Family Collaborative, we're a public health initiative for the special operations community. And we exist to bring about systemic gaps and barriers facing special operations families, service members, and vets. If it weren't for these conversations, our partnerships, work with commands, senior leaders, past and present, we couldn't do this great work. And please reach out through the survey that you'll get a link to, and follow-up email, and give us all the feedback you got, because we do the best we can to incorporate it and make this event better every quarter. If you loved the health sprint with Jason, please register for our health deep dive. It follows 1 month after our SOF Team Room, and it's focused, but we do everything we can to field all of your questions. If we don't get to them in the event, we cover them in a recap that gets emailed, and all these resources become part of a living community of knowledge that's available to everyone in the community. So thank you for tuning in with us tonight. We hope you have a lovely night and enjoyed this team room. Thanks.